Okay, good morning, everybody. So I am going to do a tutorial today on my floating glass laser kit that just came out in 2023. Finally have it up on my website. And it's in a lot of the stores up here in Alaska too. So if you're looking for one, but this one is all those beautiful Japanese glass buoys that everybody loves. It's based on those, and throw some little starfish and stuff in. So if you are into ocean life, this one would be a great one for you. What I'm going to do today is just go through the applique process. So I've already got my background sewn together, and I know for a lot of you folks, you have amazing quilt shops nearby, and if you're new to quilting, the process of like doing the stitching and all of that, I would kind of direct you to your local quilt shop owners to give you any advice you might need on sewing the backgrounds together. So everything that I do is a 1/4 inch seam. So you're always going to be doing 1/4 inch seams. And I have instructions in there that will tell you, how to do it. Oop, turn my light on. Didn't mean to. I actually wanted to have this power button over here so I wouldn't touch it, but my plug-in wouldn't reach. So it may go on and off periodically throughout this tutorial. So I've already got my background done. So as far as of course, this is the kit. This is how it will come. Let's just go back to this real quick. These are all of your backgrounds, borders, binding. It's going to have everything for the top in it, as well as all of your appliques. So this side here, you can see the different colors. I do sometimes cut completely out some things like these starfish. They're cut out 100%, so you don't have to do any snipping or anything on those ones. No, and you don't really have to do any cutting on the rest. It's just that I cut the rest of them so that the appliques kind of hold in place, because you'll want to label them before you get going. So I'm just going to set the kit aside here, and we'll jump into the pattern. So your pattern is going to come with the cover. It has this large paper inside of it that is going to be what you're going to use to label all your pieces, all your appliques, and then for doing your layout here. So you have appliques just loose, and if you're someone who wants to cut them yourself, you can always cut them yourself. These are the shapes that you'll want to trace with your Steam-A-Seam. I use light Steam-A-Seam 2. I like the lighter weight Steam-A-Seam myself, just so it's not so thick and heavy, especially when you have multiple layers stacking on each other. It can get really thick, the regular weight. So I like the light. And if you're doing them yourself, you'll want to trace everything, label everything, and then go through and cut all your shapes out. Make sure you label stuff, because if you don't, it's going to be really tricky figuring out what's what when you go to doing your layout arrangement. So in the instructions here, pre-wash all fabrics to block and remove excess dye. I really highly recommend that you do this. I know a lot of people think like, oh, it's such a pain, I'm not going to worry about it, but it is a really important step, especially with batiks. Solid or print batiks don't always leave as much, or don't always have as much excess dye, so they don't always bleed a whole lot, just because of the process of rinsing them out once the stamping is done, and they have to, get the wax off and everything. So they do get rinsed pretty well. They will sometimes bleed, especially ones that have darker colors. So it is a recommendation that I give. But when you have solids, these don't go through as much rinsing. And so these are the ones that will actually bleed the most on you. And when you go to steam, like this color here, toast, it always bleeds. When you go to steam, if you haven't pre-washed or pre-rinsed, even just taking them to the sink, running them under hot water until the water runs clear, you can have bleeding happen when you go to steam everything. So I know it's a step a lot of people get annoyed with, but it's something that I very, very highly recommend, especially if you're using batiks. But I have bleeding issues with just regular cottons. So please do that step. Just so you know, I pre-wash all of these for you. I iron them, and I apply your Steam-A-Seam on them, get them all cut, label everything. So it's a big process, but I do go through and pre-wash all of the appliques, because I don't want someone buying a kit, steaming this piece, and having it bleed on your background and ruining all that work that you did, and then getting mad at me. So I don't need angry emails as least as possible, right? Okay, so step 2, if you're doing your background, you're going to go through, cut your backgrounds, and it goes through steps 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Go through the whole process of sewing this together. So I didn't sew this one together, but I will say one thing that I highly recommend. This background, I'm doing it, helping some friends do a sample, and they sewed the background. They didn't read the instructions. You'll notice on step 8, the very last thing says press seams outwards. So outward, oh, sorry, that's on borders. Bloop, 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 bloop. Sorry, go back to step 6. Press seams open for this part here, this part in the center. I want you to press seams open. Now, they did not. The reason that I say to press seams open, and I'm just going to show you here, if I press my seam open like this, it's going to lay flatter through where the actual seam is. It's going to expand that bulk of the seam allowance over just 2 layers on this one, 2 layers on this one, versus the way that this has been pressed. 3 layers of bulk are going to be on this piece now. So it's okay if you don't do it. Like I said, I didn't actually sew this background together myself, but it's okay. But the reason that I say to press them open when you're going to lay appliques on top of them is because it spreads that bulk out. So when you go lay an applique piece down and you steam it, you have a less likely chance of seeing that line kind of come through your applique and seeing where that bulky line is from your seam allowance and from your actual seam itself. If you have just 2 layers spread out over 1/2 inch versus 3 layers just all piled under 1/4 inch. So just so you know, to do that. This one wasn't done that way, but I will remind the folks who I did this for that they should do that because of that reason. It's not going to hurt it if you press all your seams one way, it's fine. But it is a good idea to always read those little instructions. Press seams open. When I say that, it usually is because there's a reason, and it's generally because appliques are going to be pressed on top, and we want to reduce that bulk as much as possible so they look really nice and smooth and even. But when we get to the borders, I press seams outwards. A few things will kind of go over the borders, but I just find that it's easier to just press seams outwards, and you can also press those open if you want as well. But we're going to skip down to step 9. Now, if you're tracing and doing your own stuff, so if you're taking your pattern and you're going through with your seam and you're tracing all these pieces, you're going to want to do step 9. It's going to tell you to trace all the appliques on the paper side of your fusible web, and then making sure that you put them on the wrong sides of your fabric. Now, batiks, sort of, some of them, prints can have sort of a right wrong side. They're very hard to tell. You will notice sometimes on printed batiks where the stamping is, there might be some little specks that you see through it. That's generally the wrong side, and if you flip it over, you won't really see those specks on the other side. But as a general rule, batiks don't really have a right and wrong side. So, but if you are using a fabric that does, see, I turned it on. You want to press that seam to the wrong side. So you peel off the back layer of paper, not the grid side. You trace on the grid side, peel off the back side. Let me grab a piece of seam just to show you. Might be kind of harder to see because it's a light grid, but we've got a yellow grid on this side and a no grid on this side. You're going to want to trace all your shapes on the yellow grid side. And then when you go to put them on, one thing I will tell anyone who's doing this part, and I know most of you are going to probably do laser kits, if you are doing this part, say I trace these 2 shapes. Now I'm going to go cut it out and peel the back off, stick it on my fabric. Do not, at this point, waste your time cutting right on your lines. Just cut a rough area around it. Give yourself, 1/4 inch or so all the way around. I've seen a lot of people who don't know the proper way of using seam that go through and they start trying to cut all these lines out after they've traced them, before they even put them on their fabric. That is just an extra step that's going to cause you a nightmare and a headache, and it's a lot of extra time, and it's not necessary. Trace all your appliques, cut them out as a group, then go through, peel that back piece of paper. This doesn't want to peel off for me. Peel this piece off. You got your sticky tacky side here. Put it on your fabric, and then you lightly iron it, lightly. Not a lot of heat. Please keep your irons at like a medium heat. And you're just going to basically, if my hand is the iron and this is on my fabric, you're going to go press, and that's enough. You're just temporarily kind of sticking it to that fabric. We're not fusing it yet. and then go trace out your pieces. Now, having the paper go past your line is actually going to be much more stable for cutting than if you were to go through and trace and cut everything before you even put your fabric on. So that's a step I see a lot of people make that is incorrect. Don't waste your time and don't do that. But we're doing a laser kit, right? So we are actually, the only thing that we're going to do that is in any way regards to step 9 of this pattern is we're going to label. So you'll get this little piece of paper in your laser kit, and it will tell you down here at the bottom that you want to label all of your sections of color. So that's the part that we're gonna do now before we move on to step 10. We're gonna label everything. So all of these appliques, you'll see it says like C8, C5, C3, C1, and it'll tell you the color, dark blue, medium tan, light tan, and all of your applique sheets are gonna come with these ones here. These little starfish are cut out all on their own, but you'll see they're purple starfish 1. I've got a number 1 written on here. Number 3, number 4, we've got all these labeled now. I'm just gonna set them off to the side for the moment. And then I've got all of my little sections of color here. So I've already gone ahead, I've opened them up and I've labeled them, but I just want to show you. It'll say medium blue on floats, medium blue on floats. You can take your little medium blue on floats off, open it up, and label everything. As you see, I've already done that part. If you have creases and it bothers you, because once you remove the paper, it's not going to show so much in the fabric, but if it does bother you to have those creases, I'll show you what you can do. You can take an ironing board, take your iron on a very low setting, kind of press with your hand the crease out, and then just gently, don't go back and forth, just gently press it down just for a second or two. Press that out with your hand. Watch out with ones like that where the paper's wanting to peel off right now because you don't want to get it on your iron. And then just gently press, and that's good. And you can flip it over. You can press it from this side a little bit too, but you don't want to apply a lot of heat. That's it. Because we're not fusing right now. We're just kind of flattening out those creases. So if you wanted to do that on any of the others, you can certainly do that. Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes they get, you know, a weird spot that gets a crease in it, and it can be a little bit of a pain. Hold on one second here. I'm doing a video right now. Can you just come back in a little bit, please? And then I'm gonna do one more. Sorry, my son was peeking in. Press this out, and I'm gonna just gently, I don't wanna move, don't move your iron too much. I know I move it a little bit. I say, don't move your iron, and then I move it. I think this piece actually pulls right out, but I'm just gonna leave it for now. Just gonna gently press that crease out on all of these. Now you don't have to do this. Like I said, I don't usually do this myself, but for some people, they really don't like the crease in their appliques, and I just want to show you how you can press them out just lightly before we get to the fusing. This one's one big piece, so I'm just going to iron that down a little bit. These two, pressing it out, and just laying my iron kind of flat. And I don't care that they're flat, because they'll get flat later. Okay, so we've got our appliques all nice and flat. We've got everything labeled. Get my dirty, ugly little travel ironing board out of the way here, but we'll use that later when we go to fuse. And the other thing you're going to want, so now I've labeled everything. So this section of this, I'm done with. I've got everything labeled. I don't need to worry about this anymore, this whole side. Now the only side I'm really gonna work with is this side here. Some people like to cut this off, and you're welcome to do that and just use the layout as its separate piece. I'm actually not going to do that myself. I'm just gonna kind of fold this top part up so it'll be out of the way, and I'll just lay this down on top. Actually, I'll end up when we go to do the arrangement, I'll lay that down on top of it. But for right now, we're going to put together our floats. So I've got my tiny little scissors. This is one tool you're gonna want because occasionally little threads will catch in the lasers, and you might need those scissors to kind of snip them and release them from the rest of the fabric. And I've got an applique pressing sheet. So these applique pressing sheets, you can buy them at almost all the craft stores have them. I know that Joann's has them. A lot of quilt shops have them, especially because this form of applique has gotten really popular. So I have an 18 by 20 size here. I really like this size, but I don't really like anything getting any bigger than this. This is kind of my maximum size, but it works really well when you're doing larger things because you can fit a lot of stuff on it. It also fits really nicely on my light table, which is a 18 by 24 size. So there's also a size out there that I used for a really long time that's 13 by 17. That one is a great size if you're starting out, and I think they're usually around $20 or so. So it's a little bit of an investment for a tool, but if you get into doing these, you're going to want one of these. You're going to need one of these. If you absolutely don't want to buy one and you want to try something else, I have heard of people using like parchment paper. You could try that. I have never tried that for actually sticking everything together and then ironing them as one piece. So, but I have used parchment paper to stick my appliques that have already been arranged and fused onto when I need space to do more appliques and I need somewhere to put them where they won't get stuck to my table or get dog hair on them or cat hair or something like that. So, you could try it and let me know. Let me know how it works. I haven't used it for this type of arrangement, but it's an option out there, I guess, for you to test. Okay, so let's go back to our instructions really quickly. And so lay the nonstick pressing sheet over the layout guide and arrange all glass floats in numerical order. Lightly fuse and remove from the pressing sheet. So then we're going to do step 10. Step 10 is the majority of what we're going to do today. Step 10 and 11. Step 10, 11, 12, and 13. And 14. That's pretty much what we're going to get done today. So I'm going to start with float A. So every float, the big one is A. We got B and C. We're doing 2 of B and C, just 1 of A. So I'm going to start with A, and I'm going to go look on my stuff here for piece A1, because we're going to do all of A in numerical order, all A1 through A17, all of them at once. So I'm just going to pop this out, and you see how easy that just popped right out. They're very easy. And like I said, the scissors are for the once in a while where a little thread will hold. It's better to just snip it than to like pull on it, because it can pull out of your applique, or it can just leave a thread hanging out. And sometimes you don't notice them, but sometimes if it's like a dark thread on a light fabric, you do. So I just like to use a little thread scissors to snip them should you have a problem like that. And so I've got A1, and I actually, when I'm doing a laser kit, sometimes when I've cut them and you have everything already cut out, I will go and I'll arrange them next to me in order. So if it's in alphabetical order or numerical order, whatever it is for the pattern, I will lay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way to 17. So for 1, I know I have everything. And for 2, I also can easily grab them and put them on without searching for them all the time. So, but with laser kits, I like to kind of just leave them in the sheets as I get going. I am going to turn my light on now. You see how bright it is. I actually, for the videos, I usually kind of turn the brightness down slightly. I may need to leave it up a little bit, however, because these fabrics this is going to be putting a lot of appliques on a dark, whoops, see if I can get it to turn down. There it goes. I'll turn it down a little bit. So this first one is a little tricky. It's round and it has a few little shapes to it, but I even have been like, which way did I do this? I think it goes like this. No, maybe it goes like this. And so if you find that you're like, I'm not sure which way it goes, it's going to basically follow this area here. There's a little bump right there, and it kind of follows that edge and goes around. And sometimes what I'll do, even with the first piece, is I'll lay it down, flatten it out, and then I'll just kind of move it to where I know it should go. Okay, so there we go. So there's A1. Now we need A2. Now I know that a lot of these first few are going to be in this medium blue color. So I have my A2 right here. And one of the nice things is they're kind of arranged sort how they're going to go. So let's pop A2 out. Oh, I turned my light off. I'll be turning that light on and off. So see, I have a few threads that are catching a little bit, so I'm just going to snip them. I don't want to pull too hard, but one of the things with these appliques, and sometimes you'll find a little thread that just pulls out anyhow, just snip it off. So A2, when you're going through and you're like, it's hard to see through these dark ones, your pieces, what I'll do is I'll hold my hand on it, keep it steady in place, and then lift up and take a look. And I can look right now and say, okay, here's 2, here's 3, here's 4. So I know for the next few, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go ahead, peel off my paper, and just lay down. Again, look down here, and I can see that bottom line, and I'm just going to line it up on the bottom line that I see through my light table. Now, when you're laying down on these darker fabrics, it can be hard to see, and one of the things that I will also recommend, especially if you're using a light table, is to turn off your overhead lights, your lights in your room. When you turn the room lights off, all you have is the light from this, and it really shines through really well, and it makes it much easier to see your lines. So what I'm doing now is I'm lining up with this little line here, and just kind of let it go, let it fall. You're never going to want to be like forcing the appliques into place. If you're feeling like you have to force, then something is a little off kilter. Something's wrong. Lift it back up and put your arrangement back down, because they should just sort of lay flat right where they're supposed to go. So if you're trying to wiggle, 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 and it's just not working, and you're trying to put, why isn't it lining up? Lift it back up, lay it back down. And so what I do is, like here, I'm lining up this line. I can see it, and I don't know how easy it is to see because of how dark this is, but I'm lining that up with this line here that I can see through the blue. I'm not sure how visible it is in the video here, but hopefully you guys can see well enough. A5 is just a little bitty piece, and I've got to look and see where it goes. So A5, it's right here. It's kind of hard to see. Right there. A6. And if you wiggle something too, as you're moving around, just line it back up and keep going. A6 is this one right here. And again, it's sort of hard to see in there, but I'm just going to look for some little points, like here, this little curve. And then I can see the little wiggles, and see how I was going down and it's going to be off. So I'm lifting it up and I'm putting it back down. So I don't want to try to force it. I don't want any wrinkles in my fabric or anything. It shouldn't be forced. If you're forcing something, then lift her back up and lay her back down. Now I'm thinking 7 is over here, but it's hard to see. So I'm lifting up. Oh, yep, I can see. And I kind of keep my eye on where I was just looking. And I've noticed that when I lift up and I look and I spot it, when I put it back down, I can kind of still see the line, like my eye is on the line. So I'll go, okay, I can see that it comes right here, and I got my line in there. Okay, 8 is this tiny little guy here. I noticed I forgot to label. I think it's piece like 15 or something. It's this little bitty blue piece. Yep, it's going to be up in here in a little bit. I forgot to label it. Okay, so we did 7. Where's 8? Let me find 8. Oh, there we go. 8 is over here. Okay, so that is the pieces I need right now from here. I do have a couple more that'll go in A, so I'm going to switch over and find my, so I did 8, I need 9. A9. Let me look on here and see what it is so that I can, okay, it's part of a rope. Oh, I found it. Here we go. A9. That also is sometimes helpful too when you're looking for something. It's like, well, what is it? And I'll look and see what part of it is it. If it's part of the buoy, I know it's going to be a blue. And I know it's going to be a light blue because the dark blue is only the one. Oh, actually, that's a lie. I think there's one tiny piece. Yep, A16 is a dark blue, but that's it. And then if it's going to be the ropes, I know it's going to be one of the tans. So 9 was over here. And I think I have my blue background on backwards, or on in the wrong way. 1 second. I do. Shoot. Okay. I was worried I would do something like that. Okay. So I think my 9, let me just check. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I have another piece I think that's coming through here. Look at my picture. I'll tell you, even when I do these, when I've done these lots of times. Oh no, that is blue. Okay. I will mess up myself. So I put this on backwards. So you know what I'm going to do? Watch this. I lifted it up and I put it down. This blue piece in the background, it's basically circular. And I mean, it's got some little wonkies here and there, but it can be hard to figure out which direction it goes. And I just did mine backwards. And one of the things that I wanted, that I always try to tell people when they're doing these is that most of them are very forgiving. And if you do put something on backwards, you can probably fudge it and make it look fine. So here's me making it. This piece was supposed to go out here, and this blue is probably this end. I probably have it upside down. And so I just moved it up and lined it right up with the edge there. And I'm sure nobody will know but me and all of you that I did that. So just a little, if you mess up and it's like, oh my gosh, I could take all these off and fix it, but I don't want to. I guess I'm just like, I'm a little lazy like that. It's like, no, if I can make it work, I'm gonna make it work. And who's gonna know? Except for all of you. Okay, so 10 is up here. My little paper's a little bit in the way there, but it goes under here. And I'm just gonna line up like these little bumps. I also will kind of line up through the center area on things more than like starting here or starting over here. I'll just kind of line up through the middle. And I do that on purpose for a couple reasons. One of the main ones is that when you're peeling paper off and you're pulling these out, sometimes the fabrics can stretch a little bit. And if I line up in the middle, it might go slightly past on this side and slightly past on this side, but the stretch will sort of be evened out out the whole thing. If I line up on this end and it did stretch 1/8 of an inch, it'll go quite far past this way. And I would rather make it stretch out overall a little bit than stretch out a whole bunch too much on one side or the other. Now, because my blue background's a little off, I'm just kind of wiggling her around a little bit to make sure that it covers up that blue really well. Okay. Okay. So a 10, we need 11, which is also one of these pieces here. I'm going to snip off. I have a few little threads that are sticking out on this one. You don't want it, if they stick out, that's kind of better than them pulling from throughout. So just so you know, it happens. Okay. 11. Where is 11? Okay. 11 is over here, and I can see this little section here. And like I said, I kind of like to find the middle. Finding the middle is helpful for me. That's going to go under there. That's good. And this one, it comes across here and it connects over here. So I'm just kind of lifting it up and looking at it because some of these longer ones, you can manipulate them a little bit. But there we go. Lovely. 11. A 12 is also from this lighter tan color. And it goes behind this. So it starts up there at the top. Oh, and I got it a little wonky here. Let me put it over here so that I get it in the right place. There. I'm actually going to line up here and then let it lay. Because when I put it in here, it was wanting to go in here. So I lift it up, move it over, get it over here, right? 13, let's see. I think I got all my A's out of this light one. I do. So I'm going to put this out of the way. A13 is out of this kind of medium tan color. Peel that paper off. Oh, and another trick too, when I peel the paper off, I'll fold an edge down a little bit. And you might notice that the paper kind of keeps the crease and the fabric flips back over. That's one way that I fold. I do to get the paper off the back is I do that little fold deal. And I never even really noticed I was doing it until I was doing a class one time, and one of the ladies was like, "What are you doing? What is that little thing you're doing?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, how to get the paper off. And I said, "Oh, I guess I do a little fold thing." I never even realized really that I was doing it, but it's helpful sometimes to get the papers off the back. And this one is A14. That's the last one out of this darker tan, again, for that one. It's a really big one. So now this one, let me see where it starts. A14, A14, A14. Okay, so this is going to go this way. It starts over here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do my little fold. Doesn't always work. And sometimes I'll fold one spot and it's like, it does not want to release. So I'll fold over here. I'll do the same little fold move. Okay. So I know that it goes right here is one of the places where it starts, and it comes out over here. So I'm just going to move this over that way. And I know this part comes up over here and it meets with that one there, that 11 or 10. Sorry, it's 10. So I'm going to actually lift her up, make sure that it connects with 10. And then this part comes down over to here. So then I can see just a tiny bit of it and lift. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so now the last few pieces, I'm just fixing that little area there where I had to fudge. Okay, so now 15, 16, 17. So 15 is this tiny little piece that I didn't label before. It's a light blue. Snag it. So all these last few are all blues, just to tell you. So 15 is hard to see through all of that. There's actually now 3 layers. There's this light blue or dark blue, medium blue, and this dark tan or medium tan, whatever it is, all there. So I'm just going to look. It's right here. I'm just going to look, make sure it's upright, and I'm just going to plop it right in the middle there. Beautiful. I think that looks good. What do you think? Hopefully you think that looks good too. Because again, I'm not going to waste my time making sure every single thing is absolutely perfect. How many things are perfect? Like nothing. And I want mine to look different than yours. And mine will, because my blue background is upside down. And you'll probably put yours the right way, especially after you watch this. You'll be like, oh, I'm going to make sure I do mine exactly right. Because I know that that black or dark blue background is tricky. But if you end up being like me and you put it upside down, or you put it sideways, or whatever way you put it, you see there's an easy way to fix it. And 17 goes through the middle of this. So I actually can see my lines. I'm gonna line it back up a little bit. I don't know if you can see the lines. It's very hard to see through here, but there's a little line through the middle there. Okay, so that is, oh yeah, turn my light off for a minute. There is my buoy A, all done. So what are we gonna do now? I'm going to go on and do the rest of them, B and C's. But if you have a smaller pressing sheet, we're going to go through this in case you have the smaller pressing sheet. If you have a smaller pressing sheet, this is a good time to just lightly fuse this together. Now, when you lightly fuse, we're not steaming and permanently fusing anything right now. We're just fusing it gently so that it will hold together when I peel it off the pressing sheet to go and place it onto my background, right? So I don't want to be doing a lot of heat right now. I want my iron on a medium heat. I do not want it on a hot heat. Now you might look at my iron and say, wait a minute, you have yours on a double 3. Well, this iron is super cool. I don't know why it's even on max, it's still pretty cool. I can do like this and it's not bad. So when we go to just lightly fuse, so when I have in my instructions, lightly fuse and remove from pressing sheet, that means you do this. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I'm really more even focused on the edges. And that's about it. I don't want to do more than that because I don't want to overheat that glue under there. I want it to be really nice and pliable, really nice and fresh and ready to fuse permanently to my background. If you overheat your glue, you can do what I call frying the glue. And it basically, it gets real shiny and it doesn't want to stick anymore. So I know some people at this stage, they will sit there and they'll hold it down for like 10 seconds. And they're basically fusing it. And then it'll peel off of this, even if you fused it, but it's not going to want to stick to your background then. And then you'll have trouble where it's like, my fusible doesn't want to stick. What did I do wrong? Well, you may have overheated it at this stage. So now you want to let it cool a few minutes. You don't want to try to peel it off when it's hot. Now what I'm going to do, and you can see that it's not super stuck. So I'm going to very gently, you can peel this off now. And now it's one piece. So now that you have it as one piece, if you don't have a very large pressing sheet and you still need to do your other floats, you might want to take this off and put it out of the way. You don't want to get this somewhere where you're going to get fuzz or have it stick to itself, or cat hair or dog hair in the case of my house. You want to give this a place where it will not get stuff stuck to it. This is where if you have parchment paper, you can take a piece of parchment paper, lay it out, stick it on that. It'll peel off the parchment paper, no problem. You're just temporarily setting it aside somewhere. Now, because I have enough room to do my other buoys on my larger pressing sheet here, I'm just going to leave mine on here and we're going to get going on the other buoys. Just move some stuff out of the way. Get my layout guide back over here. And I hit my light, which I needed to hit my light. Okay, so let's do B. Let's do them in alphabetical order. So I'm getting my B ready to go. And I'm just gonna put something heavy to hold that in place so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so B is the same deal. We're gonna start with 1 and we go through, I think, 10. 10 is the highest number I see there. So B, 1. And we're going to do 2 of these, you might notice. Oh, wait, I have 2 B1s. We're going to go through them one at a time. So just start with B1, the first one, the first B1. Either one, it doesn't matter. They're the same shape. And we're going to lay B1. Now you'll notice this little part here is where I give myself a guide on where to lay it down on this one. It's a little bit easier because it has a definite shape to follow. B2 is part of this light blue, and actually quite a lot of them are part of this light blue for the next few numbers. So we're going to go B2, and this time it's so staticky, it sticks to me. Okay, B2. I like to take a look. Okay, I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so B2, I can see my lines okay through there. B3 is this little guy. Fold that over. B4. And I have a little thread sticking out on this one. I'm just going to snip it. And I look and I'm using this hand to hold it steady. Gosh, this one's hard to see. There we go. Now I got it. Okay. B5. And again, if I wasn't doing this in the video, I would have my light table up to the brightest it can get to see through that dark color. And I'm in a room that is not lit from above at the moment. It's all lit with windows, but even doing things at night when you have a dark room is actually helpful too, because again, you don't have that overhead light, and your light table, when it's the only source of light, it's really much easier to see through darker fabrics. Now, if we were doing this on a lighter color, it would be a lot simpler. And I probably, people are like, why didn't you just do it that way? Because the shapes were lighter in order to have them where you didn't have to cut out shapes, which my laser could do that no problem, and have this blue be one big piece and then lay it on top of a light color. But for the arrangement to make it easiest for people who don't want to have to cut all these little 3D, or not 3D, all these little insert pieces out, it was easier to do the dark underneath. So I was trying to think about the simplest way to layer things in my instructions for both people who are doing laser cuts, but also people who are cutting themselves. Not a lot of people cut themselves these days. Now, if you find something like this, I just arranged 7, and I'm finding that 7 under here, I don't care about that, but 7 up here to 2, it's a little bit tight. I'm just going to move 2 a little bit to give that, where that rope is from that you're seeing basically through the glass here. I wanted to space it out a little bit. You can certainly do that. Do whatever you need to make it look good for you. So that's everything. And that's actually all for, that's everything for the blue, the light blue. So that's it. So I have my other set of bees there, but I'm moving on to the ropes now. So we did 7. So we need to do B8. B8 is this only light tan piece. It's quite a intricate light tan piece, but you'll see there's actually, this is one place where I did have one thing that if you're cutting it yourself, you do have to do a little, I usually like my cuts to be all one continuous line, and I do have one that was cut out from the center. I don't normally do that, but in the case of this one, it was sort of like, otherwise I have to add another piece where you put it on top of the color underneath, and nobody ever cuts themselves, so I thought I'm just gonna put it in there. I cut one out. I actually, just so everybody knows, I do actually hand cut all my designs when I'm first designing them. So everything that I do is hand cut by me at some point, with very few exceptions. The only things that I have not done that on are a few of my animal shapes. There are a few of those that I didn't hand cut. I just drew and digitized right off the bat. But for the most part, everything, and you'll see this one just kind of, I'm just kind of checking that it's going in the right place. And they are. It just sort of lays. Sometimes these little skinny ones, you can maneuver them a little bit, and especially like these ones. And when I go to put the next one on, if it's off a little, I can lift this up and kind of move it over a little bit. But for right now, I think it looks fine. So that was 8. And that's it for the lighter tan. So now we just have dark tan, and there are 2 B pieces. We want 9 next. B9. Whoop. Come back here. And that's right here. And B10. And here's another one where I did do a couple little cutouts. So apologize. There are larger ones. I try not to do like those little tiny ones up here. It was like, nah, I'm not going to make them cut that out. We'll put a piece there. I think when I first did mine, I even just put a piece on it and was like, no, I'm not even going to try to cut that out. If I was going to need to cut it out, I'd be using tiny little scissors like this. And so B10, this is it for B. And this one, so see how it's laying down, and now these are lining up great. This one is a little bit off now. I could probably move this a little bit, but it's kind of a more solid shape. So I'm going to move this little light tan over just slightly so it meets up where it looks like it should. And that's it for B. B is done. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the second B now right away. We just did one. Let's do the other. It'll go quick because we just did it. So B1, popping that out. I got a little thread here. I'm going to clip that off. Oop, I got a couple little threads over here too. It's funny how some colors I'll be, I cut thousands of kits every year, and some colors of fabric, and it's not even colors, it should be like some bolts. It's like once in a while you'll get one, and for some reason it's like everything in this bolt of this particular color just has little threads that just want to stick. I don't know why. And then you'll get another bolt down the road and it doesn't do that at all. So why, I don't know. It just probably has to just do with the weave and how, unique they all are. So I'm going to flip this up and just take a peek. I know 2 is up here. Okay, I can see that where it goes. 2, 3, 3 is over here. 4. 4 was one that was giving me a little trouble figuring out it's where it went. Not on this one, I can see it better. 5. Okay, 5 is down here. 6. What's really great about laser kits too is, like, I remember when people first started doing them, and when I was first approached about, have you ever thought of doing laser kits? You know, probably from people who had bought one of my designs and made one and was like, oh my God, that was horrible. How many little pieces? And then, you know, it's like you get away from it after a while and you're like, oh gosh, it turned out so nice though. And now, oh, okay, I'll do another one. And then you're thinking like, have you ever heard of laser kits, lady? Because, oh my gosh, your stuff is hard. And so I finally, when I first heard about laser kits, I was like, that's such cheating. Okay, we're done with B. All we have left on this one now is the C pieces. So I'm just going to, and the same with the dark blue. I'm just going to put this over here. So now I have my B8 of the light tan, and then I'm done with B's on the light tan as well. So light tan is one that wants to stick. Anyhow, I remember thinking at first, like, well, that's such cheating. Like, all you do is, like, the machine does all the work for you. And then I have to do all that work too, because, you know, people complain sometimes how laser kits are expensive, but I try to remind people what you're getting right here is me having washed these fabrics. First of all, digitize the whole thing, which is a time-consuming process. I do it myself and I hate it, but I do it. I always tell myself, you do it once, it's done forever. So digitizing everything first, washing every fabric every time, ironing all those fabrics so they look nice and are nice and flat, not full of little wrinkles everywhere, cutting all your steam a seam to the size, and then putting them onto the fabrics, and then putting them in my machine, and then letting it cut all the shapes, and then labeling all the shapes and packaging all the shapes and putting them in the kits. So laser kits are very labor intensive on my end. Basically, I have done as much work as I can for you up to the point where you just peel the paper off the back and stick them in place. So I hope people understand that. I also want people to remember sometimes my business is me, and sometimes my mom, and sometimes my husband, and sometimes my kids, and sometimes my cousin's wife. And that is my business. I'm not a big business. I don't have a lot of staff. Every laser kit, I can tell you, every laser kit that you receive, I've had a hand in. Whether it is prepping the fabrics for the laser, of which I do pretty much 100%. I've had a handful of the kits that have been actually put together by somebody else. Most of the time, I'm the one who packages your kit. I'm also the one who got your fabrics ready. So it's a lot of work. It's what I do most of my year is, you know, I always tell my family where I'm standing right now doing this sample. This is where I stand most of the year, whether I'm cutting fabric, whether I'm prepping fabrics for the machine, whether I'm packaging kits. This table and this space and my view out my windows, this is where I'm at the majority of the year putting these kits together for you guys. And so I very much appreciate everyone who buys them and does them, and I hope loves them. And just so you know, like, your kit, my hands were a big part of it, getting it ready to get to you. And my hands work pretty hard. So okay, so let's see, we're almost done here with 8, or I mean B, I'm sorry, B, not 8. So just putting my final piece on here. And then again, this one here is a little off, a little down. So I'm just going to move it up there. That looks pretty good. This one here, again, too. This little piece that's sticking out, I feel like should go over just slightly. There we go. Okay, so B, both B's are done. So now we're on to C. This is our final float. let's see. I want to make sure I have enough room to arrange both of them on this pressing sheet. So I'm going to put it like this. I'm going to put my little tape to hold it. Okay, so C1, our dark piece so that we can't see our pictures through, or our lines through it. Okay, and it just sort of goes underneath those edges that are all the ropes. Okay, so C2, we're into the light blue or medium blue, whatever that, medium blue. C2 is this tiny little piece. Where, oh, where does it go? Let me look up here. Okay, C2, C3, and C4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna worry about those because those are all of my medium blues. Oh, and I have a thread sticking out too. Okay, so 4, 5, 6. Oops. Oh, I bumped it. Did I bump? I just bumped the paper. Did I mess it up? Because sometimes I'll have a tendency, I bump something, and then there's been times where I've bumped things and I didn't realize it, and I kept arranging, and then I realized down the road, oh, this is off. And what I'll do is, I just like that dark blue, I'm not going to go back and move everything. The appliques and all of my designs, especially ones that are floral, this one actually does touch there, so don't think that you're wrong right there. Okay, so we're going to move this off to the way, but especially florals, they are very, very forgiving. You can pretty much like have your flower going off the total wrong direction, realize that it was supposed to be going this way, and the other flower is going to be, and then just straighten it up, put the other flower where it goes, and you'll never notice. They're very forgiving designs. I do, this is one of the very few ones that I've ever done that is actually a man-made item, these glass buoys. Almost everything that I do is nature, and I love nature because it's beautiful and it's very forgiving. So even though you might have something that's a little off, I always tell people every flower is different. If your flower is a little different than my flower, that's totally fine, and nobody is going to notice, especially once you remove this paper from the back. Nobody's going to notice if your flower or your buoy is slightly different than mine. So I always try to remind people not to stress too much about their appliques and everything being perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. And once you remove that background too, and you're, you know, if you weren't quite on the lines everywhere, once you remove that background, you are never going to remember which lines were off. Okay, so this one I have a few little threads that are, this one for some reason really wanted to stick in a few places, and they're just very wispy little threads, but I kind of just like to cut them now. It's easier to cut them now than after I've put it in place. So I'm on C9, and there's a C10 that I saw in the light tan, and I think that that is it on these ones. So this one's a very detailed one. So I see up here, I know that it kind of finishes this. Go ahead and put that, and actually I'm going to move it down slightly so it covers that tan, and it goes over here. I can see that it goes down here and wraps around and touches over here. Now this middle part, sometimes what I do is I just kind of lift it up and let it go down, and then just tap, 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 tap all around. Beautiful. This little brown, it's a little bit, it's like sticking down a little bit. I'm just going to lift it up so that it lines up nicely with the edge of this light tan. And then we have our C10, this last little piece. And that is just this little highlight on the little bottom of the glass buoy. Okay, so let's do our final glass buoy and then we can start arranging our backgrounds. Okay, so I'm planning on doing quite a few new tutorials. I have them probably on my Facebook first. I might get them on another platform at some point. I'm not very tech savvy, so once I've got it figured out, yeah, that's everything for this dark blue now. Usually I just kind of stick with that for a while, so these will be up on Facebook. You may see this somewhere else at some point, but just wanting to make sure to give people some instructions, because one of the things I find is when people learn how to do them, they say to me all the time, oh, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. And that's one of the things I try very hard to make my designs look difficult, but really be easy. If you're doing a laser kit in particular, maybe that doesn't apply if you're cutting them yourself. But if you're doing a laser kit, I always say, like, you don't have to tell people how easy it is, but really what this is it's like stickers. Like, here's your sticker, peel the paper off the back and stick it in place. Here's my little sticker, and my sticker is in place. I've had other folks who've told me that it reminds them of doing, oh, this one now. Now, sometimes you'll find some that really want to stick. And if that happens, like this very last one, of course, I will just take my little scissors in and just start snipping away at the edges. And I apologize when that happens. Sometimes it's because the paper was, or the machine, the fabric was up a little bit in the machine and it wasn't focused perfectly. If that happens to you, or if you happen to get one that's like that, I try to catch ones that do that so that they don't ever even make it into a kit. Occasionally, part of one, like on this one, will do it, and I didn't notice it, and so it might need a little bit more cutting out than before. I mean, it's like you're cutting on that little line. So, and it's usually just in one area. So this is probably an area where the fabric was up a little bit. And it's just sort of like, there's the way that the laser cuts, it's like little dots. So it might be that, like, in this particular area, the little dots weren't focused well, which means that the fabric was probably raised slightly, like, you know, fabric can get, and it didn't cut as clean as it did everywhere else. Most of the time it's noticeable from the top if it's bad, so I always just pull those and throw them away. But sometimes, especially on lighter fabric, sometimes it's not really noticeable until you go to pull them out, and then it's like, oh, this one little area, so you can see like most of it, but this one little area, yeah, it's just wanting to hold. And in some ways I'm glad that that happened on this, because then you can see that it's not that it's wasted or that you can't use it. Just take your little thread scissors and just kind of snip around. Or if it's really holding, you can take, you know, larger scissors, larger applique scissors. This one is just, I can see through it. I can actually see all the little dots. So I'm just kind of snipping it out. And it was just this one little section of this one page that had, and actually that's just a few little minor threads there. The other thing I was going to mention too, I had a piece that fell out when I was tracing all the appliques, and I like them to kind of stay where they're supposed to be so that I know where they go. If you ever find that you have a piece and there's a tiny piece of tape on it, which is what's the case here, here's my little tiny piece of tape, that's because it fell out in the laser cutting process and I wanted it to stay there so you don't lose it in your thing, and I'll just put a little piece of tape on it. So if you ever have something where it's like, what's going on here? There might be a little tiny piece of tape. This is piece 10. I don't need that right now. And that is because it fell out and I was putting it back in place so you know where it goes, so you don't lose it. And it's just, you know, obviously the machine is funny when it does round cuts and versus like fur type cuts, you know, they're all pointy. The round cuts cut out really easy at a lower power level. And then we're done here now with this light one, with this piece. Then the ones that are more furry. So I have some designs like my blueberries where the round blueberries, they cut out really easy. And then the more spiky shaped ones don't. So sometimes it's hard to find that balance of what the settings should be. So let me just get this arranged. Oh, okay, hold on. What am I? Oh, I'm looking at it wrong. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong part here. Okay, and that goes in there. Okay, and C9. And that's it for that light tan also. Oops. Okay. I'm just going to place this. I like to find little areas where I know it's lined up correctly. And I'm going to go up from here. Try not to pull because you can stretch. So again, I'm just very gently kind of putting it where it's supposed to go. And this one, actually, let's put that on top of that. Okay, and 10, where'd 10 go? Here it is. Here's my little 10, C10 of buoy 2, and we're done. Okay, all of our buoys are done. So, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna get this out of the way for the moment. We're gonna need it again, but now I've got all my buoys ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my light table for the moment and grab my ugly dirty board here. So I already pressed this one as to one piece. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm now going to do that with my other buoys. So again, we're not fusing now. We're just getting them warmed up a little bit, that glue, warming it up a little bit, just enough so that they kind of hold together. Now, one nice thing about these ones is you have this dark blue that's kind of behind everything. So it's going to hold stuff. Even if I lifted this up right now, it's going to hold pretty well on its own until we get up here. So you don't need a lot of heat. And if you have one big piece underneath, you actually don't need to put too much on that area either, because it is going to kind of hold everything on top of it really well. Okay, so iron, not too hot. My iron is sort of an exception, and you'll know your iron. If you have an iron where you're like, oh my gosh, my iron is so hot, and that was it. I like to kind of press it in the shape of the iron. So just a few seconds. Just warming the glue up so everything kind of just sticks to itself, just enough to hold, and that's all. So like I said, if you have an iron that you know on a low setting is super hot, make sure it's low. If you have an iron like mine, I have 2 irons that I use. One of them is really hot, and the other one is that one. It's not a very hot iron at all. So I sometimes, when I'm going to do fusing, crank it all the way up, just because it doesn't get hot really ever. And you'll know your iron, know what to do. Really quickly before we get going, I just want to move a little bit of my garbage. Give me 1 second here, please. Make sure I'm still recording, of which it appears that I am. I had to put my phone up so high that I can't look at it. So it's like up there on top of a box to get it high enough so you can see my whole like workspace area here. And so I can't see if it's recording. So I thought, what would be great, or what, that'd be not great, but like terrible, if I've been doing this the whole time and I go to push stop and it was like, oh yeah, it recorded for 5 minutes and then it stopped. So I hope you want to do another one. Okay, so we have finished, turn my thing on again. We have finished doing number 10, all our glass floats. So now we're going to begin arrangement. So we need our background, which you will have already put the entire background together on this one. So this is one where we're going to arrange the rest of it just directly on the background now. We've done all the other pre-arrangement needed, getting those glass floats ready. So what we want to know now is, we're going to center the runner vertically and horizontally on the dash marks. So you kind of want to know where your center is. Now, my center, I have 4 blocks here, up and down. My center is going to be, of course, this center line here. I know that line, my horizontal center. My vertical center, where's my vertical center? 1, 2, 3, 4, here. These 2 lines here, these are my vertical center. So if you need to, you could put a pin to remind you, and I'll do that real quick. Let me grab a pen, a couple pens. So sometimes that's helpful to kind of keep in mind, where is my vertical and horizontal centers? And if these end up getting in the way of the appliques, I can move them. But this is my vertical and horizontal. I know my horizontal from the line. So we're going to do one side at a time. And then the center, that huge, grab your little starfish now, because we're going to be putting them down. Have them ready. So my huge float goes on last. So we're going to do, see if I can get this to fold off out of the way. Okay, so we're going to do this one side, flip it over, do the other side, and then put our piece A on last. So I may have to move this like this so you guys can see. Okay, so on my sheet here, I have my horizontal center and my vertical center. So I'm going to line up. In particular, right now, we want to find that vertical center. So my dashed lines, I can see through here, and it's a lighter fabric, so it might be hard for you to see because there's seam allowances there, but I've got this edge of the seam allowance, the center here, lined up on my vertical center. Now, I want to make sure my horizontal center. Now, my horizontal center right now is about 1/2 inch too high. So I want to pull this down and get my seam allowance right on that horizontal center. Make sure that my vertical center is still in place, which it is. So in this case, I sometimes like to just put something heavy. Hold it there so it doesn't wiggle. Okay, so we've got our horizontal and vertical centers in place. Now, let me find my instructions. Put them over here. Okay, so now that we've got our layout, or our background runner over the layout guide, centering the runner vertically and horizontally using the dash marks, we're going to arrange float C. Now we're just arranging one of them. So float C was the last one we did that has this kind of longer rope off the back. Pull it up. Now, if you have something like this, it just kind of came off. I'm just going to, when I go to do the arrangement, I'm just going to make sure that it goes back in place. So float C. Float C hangs off onto your border a little bit. It's up here. I can see it through. And again, like I said, this part just lifted because you don't want to put too much heat on that, and I just didn't want to overheat it. So I'm just going to lay that back down, and I can look at my arrangement, right, to make sure that it's in the right place. So there we go. Float C. Next, starfish 1 through 3. So I've labeled my starfish. Little guy is 4, so I don't need the little guy right yet. So here's a 3, and we're going to do them in order because I don't know if it matters specifically on this one, but if it says do 1 through 3, do it 1, 2, 3. Don't do it 3, 2, 1. Do it 1, 2, 3. And peel number 1 off and find, where is this one? Oh, it's up here. Okay. And my little tape is in the way, but I'll put starfish down, then I'll put the tape back. Come on, you little guy. You go. Right there. Okay. 1. Make sure I haven't messed up my lines. Still on vertical of center. Okay. 2. It's this big starfish. This big lighter colored starfish. These do technically have like you know, you can rotate them around till you get it perfect. They're kind of, you know, generally they're a star. They got 5 points. The points are going to go off in different ways. This one's off. If you that's because it's not rotated exactly where you want it. If you want to find the exact rotation, go for it. That's not it. That's not it. Oh, it'll be the very last one. Oh, nope, third time. So if you want to find the exact rotation, but I always tell people, if I had left that like that, if I had left it this way, you would not have noticed. Again, don't get hung up on those little bitty particular details. Here's number 3 down here. If your starfish is rotated differently on either side, that's okay, because you know what? They're supposed to look like they're different starfish. It's not supposed to look like they're exactly the same starfish on either side. So if your starfish is rotated different than mine, then sweet. Now yours is unique. Okay, float B. So we got to get one of our float Bs. So when I take these off, again, you don't rip it right off. You want to be gentle with them. Just peel it off lightly. And if it starts to like have something where it's not, you know, say if I started up here with this little point, I could peel this off, and that way I kind of keep it together, and I just gently peel from more than one direction. If you start peeling from one side and something's lifting, grab the other side and peel off from that way, and maybe it will stay under where it's supposed to be that way. So don't feel like, you know, you want to do it gently, but don't get worried if something starts to like move a little bit too. Okay, B. And starfish 4, which goes up here. Now I put down here after this to lightly fuse. So that is doing, again, the same thing where you're just very, and again, here, this starfish, okay, right now, I think it looks great. Technically, it's not on there in the exact right rotation, but I could find exactly the right one, which is that way. I don't know if you were paying attention, but you probably noticed absolutely no change. It really, if you have this up and down, these ones are a little different. They're a little bit more unique shape, but with these, don't stress if yours aren't fitting perfectly. It's probably just because your rotation is off. Switch it around, try the legs, like pick this leg, move him to here, then move him to here, move him to here until you find where it's perfect. Or just stick him on and be okay with him not being exactly perfect to the background layout. That's okay. So now I'm telling you to go ahead and lightly fuse. So these are stuck pretty good. You don't have to lightly fuse at this point, but if you're worried about something falling down, or if you get to this point and suddenly you have to leave and you're going to go fold it up and put it away, go ahead and just gently put your iron on it. And again, my hand is the iron. You're just going to go press and lift, press and lift, press and lift. That's all you're doing. You don't want to do anything more than that at this point. We're not permanently fusing. We're lightly fusing. Oh, I turned my light table down that time. Okay. So now we are going to repeat step 11 for the other side. So you're going to rotate it, line up your center and your horizontal. So my horizontal, there's the dash line. So it's at this seam. Got her lined up on the horizontal. Now vertical's off by about 1/4 inch. I'm gonna pull it over, get my horizontal. Check my horizontal here. Yep. Horizontal is still good. Vertical is good. I'll grab my little piece of tape, or my tape dispenser, I guess, not my piece of tape. Put it on there, and we're going to repeat. So we're going to do the same thing as we did before. Float C first. Gently peeling off float C. And from here, because of what happened last time, I'm going to go ahead and just lift this and lift this. And just peel that up from both sides. I'm going to put float C down. So float C, it's going to be like upside down this time, right? From what we did before, because we've rotated it. So from my angle, it's upside down. Float C, and then what was it? Starfish? Yep, starfish 1 through 3. And it doesn't actually matter that you put 1 through 3, 1, 2, 3, but I would just do a 1, 2, 3. Just get used to, you know, following the way it goes. Sometimes it's important, like you do 1, then you do 2, because 2 lays on top of 1. So don't do 1 before 2. But in this case, it isn't like that. So you could do them either way. And let me think. So starfish. One, 2, 2. So before you take your paper off too, if you want to check, oh my goodness, I keep turning my thing off. That's why I didn't want, I'm gonna have to get a longer cord so I don't turn that on and off. So that's actually the right way right there. So if I hold it like this, just flip her over, but keep this one on top. I know that this is the top one, or the one that, to me, that's gonna point up. And I put it in the center and then let the legs fall. 1, 2, 3. And all this paper, you know, that you're peeling off, that's just garbage. 3, buoy B. Grab my other B and peeling that off there. Place it where it goes. And then starfish 4. And that's not correct. I can correct it. Find the way it goes. I think that's the way, yep, that's the way it goes. So, but again, you can use it, you can leave it. And then now we've got everything arranged. Now it doesn't say diffuse or anything because we're now, before we go any further, we're going to put float A in place. So peel off that float A. That's your last one over here. So I'm just going to kind of start up here. Oop, I don't want to lift anything too much. So I'm going to start kind of go over here. You may have put this off on a piece of parchment, lift it up. So I'm done with appliques. Which way does this guy go? I think the little handle or the top goes down here, and it does. Arrange him. Okay. Oh, I was like, what is that little bump? It's my little needles for my vertical alignment. So if you do that, take those out. Okay. So everything is now arranged. So now I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. I'm gonna pull this out from behind it, get that out of the way, and ta-da! You've got everything in place. So now the last thing to do is your fusing. So we're gonna go through that process because that is really important that you do it correctly. And so let me move a couple things here. I'm gonna just get my light table, my little scissors I don't need anymore. Get my light table out of the way. Now, if anybody's looking for a light table, a lot of quilt shops will have them, a lot of craft places will have them. This one that I have is a daylight. I love the size of it. It's 18 by 24. There are other brands out there too. This one I just was shown at one point. They have 3 different sizes. I think you can find them on Amazon, but a lot of quilt shops and craft stores will carry them. And if you have a local quilt shop, please support them and buy from them if they have these. There's smaller light tables. For a long time, I used one that was about half this size, and it worked really well for most of what I was doing. I mean, you have to move around a little bit more. I like this one because I don't have to do that anymore. And I like that it's flat. My other one was at an angle because it was actually for drawing. But it's really great. And it's something that if you get into doing this, you're going to want to do it. Now, if you don't want to invest in a light table, because they are expensive, especially if you're starting out, you can always just take any sort of glass table and place a lamp under it. Makes a great light table. That's what my first light table was a glass table in my kitchen that I put a lamp under. And I did that for a long time. And I've even taped my background layout guides onto windows and then had to tape this up onto it also as I'm doing my arrangement, and then use that as my light table was my window, my light window. So anyhow, one other thing to mention, when you go to trace all your labels, or when you're writing all your labels, I love these sort of pencils. Any mechanical pencil, they stay sharp. They don't smudge as much as, a normal number 2 that you would be sharpening manually. So, okay, I'm going to use my tiny little travel ironing board, but if you were at home or in your sewing room or your studio, you would probably have a normal size ironing board. And I'm going to lay down my appliques with the ironing board underneath, and have my iron set on a medium setting. We don't want it super hot. Now, if you have an iron that will steam, which most irons do, you might want to use your steam feature. My iron that I'm using right now, I used it to steam, and one time it decided it wanted to spit out a whole bunch of minerals that it had been storing in there. One of them was iron, and it messed up my background. I got really mad at it. So I don't use the steaming feature of this iron. I used to have this really great iron. It was a Laura Star. It finally died on me, but it was awesome for steaming, and I've just never found one since then that I like enough. So I have gotten to where I use a spray bottle, and I just use the dry heat from my iron. So you can use your steaming from your iron if you have a reliable iron. If not, you can use a spray bottle. But what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to apply that steam in one way or another. So whether it's through wetting it and then using your iron to evaporate that steam through the dry heat, or whether you're blasting it with some steam first and then using the dry heat on your iron. Either way is fine. So if you're going to use a steaming feature on your iron, I'm going to just show you what we're going to do. Actually, first I'm going to tell you, once we've got everything in place, before you start to steam, you want to go ahead and just, this is where we are going to lightly fuse. So what is lightly fusing? I'm just going to I'm pressing. Now, I'm not going to iron. If you at this stage put it down and start rubbing your iron across, you have a very good chance that you're going to peel something up and it's going to stick to your iron and it's going to ruin your applique and it's going to get glue all over your iron. Right now we're pressing and lightly fusing. So I'm just going to place the iron flat down, leave it for a few seconds, lift, flat down, leave it for a few seconds, lift, flat down, leave it for a few seconds. And all I'm doing right now is I'm just warming up that glue and I'm making it kind of very temporarily bond to my background fabric so that when I do hit it with some steam or some water, I'm not going to have, especially the steaming feature can sometimes make an applique that's not lightly stuck down already fly off or flip up, and then like I said, you end up getting it on your iron. Now I would do this over the whole thing because I have this just tiny little ironing board under here. I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm not ironing, I'm pressing and lifting and pressing and lifting. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fuse this section that is on my little ironing board. So if you're going to use a steamer feature on your iron, you're going to hold your steam iron about within an inch of the applique area, hit it with steam for about 5 seconds. I'm going to do the steam now. Ready? And set it down straight on it. Leave it there for about 10 seconds. Lift it, move on to your next footprint and repeat. All over everywhere. When you're finished, you can also do it from the back. I recommend doing it from the back because the steam needs to get all the way through all those layers so it bonds really well to your background fabrics. In some of these areas, like right here, we have a tan, actually, let's say right under this, we have a light tan piece that goes under here, a dark tan piece that goes over it, a medium blue, and the dark blue. We have 4 layers in this little spot. I don't know if my steam is going to get all the way to the layer that's bonding to the back. So if I come back around and I steam from the back, I know that that steam has, and that bond has gotten through all the way. And I run less risk of something coming off in the future. Also, when you first start steaming, if you want to check your iron's heat level, do one area or a little small section, flip it over and see if you're seeing little dots from the fusible in your lighter color fabrics in particular, or if you're noticing them on the top. If you're seeing little bitty dots, which is that webbing that's on your fusible, that means your iron's too hot. You're overheating your glue. So turn your heat down, give it a few minutes, make sure it reduces that heat, and then start again. So now, if you're like me and you want to use a spray bottle, I will spray, and I really get it pretty dang wet. And I just sort of do one little section, get it nice and wet, and then I place my iron on, and I love hearing that shh. I know that means that it's steaming well. And I just leave my iron on there for about 10 to 12 seconds to evaporate all of that moisture. And it is doing the same thing as a steam iron. It is steaming my fusible right now and permanently fusing it. And then after about 10 seconds or so, I'm gonna lift it up. I'm just gonna do the next footprint. Sometimes they overlap a little, that's okay. And I'm again, this is, 10 seconds or so for every little footprint. And I would do this on the whole top. And then I would do it on the reverse, flipping the whole thing over and doing it on the back. So I'm not going to do the back while we're doing the video because, this part's a little boring. It takes a little while to go through, but it's very important that you do this part. So I'm not ironing again, I'm just steaming right now. So if you find that like sometimes your backgrounds wrinkle up a little from the steam, just leave it for the moment. You can always go back through and kind of iron them later, or steam and iron as you go. But right now we're mostly focusing on getting those appliques really permanently fused to your background. So we do this over the entire top. And I just go from one side to the next. There's no, you have to do it one way or another. And if you get it done and you're not sure, if you feel like, I don't know if it's really fused really well, you can do a couple tests. Once you've let the glue cool a little bit, kind of scratch it with your nail. If everything's sticking well, you got it good. I always do it from the back too, so that's a good idea. But you can check it like that. It's staying stuck. I think I'm good. I'm going to do it from the reverse too, so I'm going to get it underneath there really well too. But if you're just like, oh, I just don't know, you can always go through and you can steam it again. Do it again. You're not going to hurt it as long as you keep that. And see, now that this is fused, now I can do a little bit of like ironing. If you have some little wrinkles in your background from the steaming part and you're like, oh, I hate those little wrinkles. Now that it's fused, I can iron it a little bit and flatten that back out. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to move it because I'm just on my little mini thing, and we'll do this big buoy in the middle. So like I said, I really get it very wet. Place that down, make sure I'm getting everything, and just I just sort of let go of it, because I don't want to be moving it. I just want it to do its thing, iron everything well, and then I just pick it up and I move it to its next place. And then a lot of the times, like I did before, when I get to the next place, when I run out of space, I just go wet everything that comes next and then put it back down and do this over the whole thing. So this is kind of a boring time. It's not the most exciting, the fusing portion of it, but it's extremely important. And so now while we're doing this, why don't we talk a little bit about quilting, because your next thing is going to say quilt runner as desired and then sew on your binding strips. So if you need any help when it comes to binding, I would encourage you to go on my website. I have a tips page, and it's not a video, but it is a photo tutorial that goes through how I do my binding. So you get nice pointed corners and everything looks beautiful. It's the way my mom showed me how to do it years ago. It's the way I always do my bindings. So if you are not really familiar with binding, you can always go check that out. I also have photos of how I do quilting. So for me, I have some neck injuries, and being in front of a sewing machine for very long is quite painful. So I don't do a lot of sewing. People are usually always surprised at that because of what I do, but I'm really more into drawing and designing than actually sewing. So I don't sew a lot. And part of the reason too is that I'm a little impatient. So I have seen people do, now this area I haven't temporarily, I'm just cutting in here. I have not temporarily fused this, like haven't given it any fusing yet. So before I go to do my steaming, I'm just going to press everything down so that I don't have any issues with anything peeling or curling or moving. If you were to blast it with steam, you can have that problem. So anyhow, back to what I was saying. So with quilting, I know that there are people who do amazing, beautiful things with quilting. I mean, that will go in here and do such gorgeous stuff. It takes the Tablerunner to a completely new level of elegance. And so if you're someone like that, you do whatever you want. You can do anything you want on this with quilting. For me, I generally use clear threads also because I'm a little lazy and I don't like to change my thread. So I do clear thread, and I pretty much try not to ever stitch on the appliques. Occasionally there might be something really large and bulky that's a wall hanging where I might want to put a stitch kind of through the middle just to make sure it holds all those layers, that doesn't sag. But as a general rule, I do very, very little quilting on the appliques themselves because this fusible is actually very good. And I don't, on table runners and wall hangs, I should say, table runners and wall hangs, I hardly ever do any quilting on them because they're mostly decorative. Wall hangings in particular, they're going to hang on the wall. They're not going to get, they're going to get moved around very much. They don't really need a lot of extreme stitching to hold everything together. Table runners maybe get a little bit more wear, but something like this, I always think of it as more of a decorative thing. I don't really know if anybody's going to allow their family to put like a big pot of spaghetti in the middle of it and ruin, it with stains everywhere. I would think that this might be something on your table, and when it comes, spaghetti night comes around, you take it off and you put like some pot holders down to put the hot plates on, or you have another table runner that's just a simple one that you would put down in its place. If you do want to wash them, once they've been steamed and fused really well, you definitely can wash them. Now, I always say put them on a gentle cycle. Don't put them in the dryer. Let them air dry. Why wouldn't you want to put them in the dryer? Well, what does the dryer do? It takes a wet thing and it heats it up. What am I doing right now? I'm wetting it and I'm heating it up. And what is that doing? It's making my glue fuse. So if you put it in a dryer, you're essentially re-steaming it, and you run the risk that something's going to lift and come off. Now, I have had to put something in the dryer before because I got something very, very stained because I didn't pre-wash my fabric. It was a brown color and it bled everywhere. If that happens to you, on this one piece, I figured it's ruined anyhow. I tried washing it a number of times. I stuck it through the dryer a couple of times even. Nothing came off, and that was great. But you do run a risk that something could come off in the dryer cycle. So I always tell people, let it air dry, and then when it's finished drying, if you need to, press out wrinkles, go ahead and do it at that point with your iron. So the only time that I do quilt on them is if it's on a quilt, if it's appliques that are going on a quilt, because a quilt is going to get a lot more love, a lot more wear, and you do have a higher risk, and probably a lot more washing, and you do have a higher risk of the appliques peeling off after time, because I always remind people, after all, it is just glue. It isn't stitching. It's not holding it together with anything more than that glue. So if you're going to be quilting something that or if you're going to be making something that like a quilt, that's going to get a lot of love, a lot of washing, then you will want to stitch on them at least a little bit. I will just kind of tack down. I will, in that case, change my thread colors, and I'll use a matching color thread, and I'll just sort of freehand stitch like through the middle of this, or maybe along the edges within about 1/8 of an inch all the way around, changing out my color threads. Now on this table runner, if I were to quilt this one, and the way that I quilted my original samples, I just took a clear thread. I started anywhere. I probably started on this end somewhere, and I did my fix-it stitch, and I stitched around the outside of the appliques within 1/8 of an inch or so, all the way around, and followed all the shapes all the way around to this side and back around. And then if there were a few areas, like maybe this spot, I would come in and maybe stitch in here, and maybe stitch in here, and stitch in here to tack it all down. That's all I do. I will sometimes do a stitch in the ditch around borders. I don't almost ever stitch in this type of a border, only because, like I said, I have a neck injury that makes it hard for me to sew for very long. So if you're somebody who wants to do amazing, beautiful stitching, go for it. Do whatever you want. But for me, I don't stitch on the appliques on something like this. If I need to wash it, I will put it on a gentle cycle and I will let it air dry. Don't put it in the dryer. And then I can iron out any wrinkles that need to happen afterwards. Otherwise, I think that's it. So for quilting, so again, you can always go to my tips page on my website. It's www.wildfiredesignsalaska.com. And I hope you enjoyed this. So I hope I answered questions. I'm not real great at social media, so you won't always find me getting on there and answering things right away. I do occasionally go, oh geez, I haven't been on Facebook in like weeks. Maybe I should go check and see if anybody has a question. So if you have any immediate questions for me, my contact information is also on my website. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you'll want to make this one. This is really my most my favorite one that I did from 2023. And I put all colors in it and all the things in it that I thought would work in my kitchen, because I actually don't have a single design of mine in my house anywhere because I get sick of them. I work on them forever and I get sick of them, and I don't want to see them every day. So this is the one that I thought I might put one of these in my kitchen on my dining room table. Maybe. I haven't done it yet, but I made sure to do colors that would match in my house. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you will want to make one of these. I hope this has made it, the process of the applique seem a little bit more, or maybe less intimidating. And I hope that you will want to do more once you've done your first one. So thank you so much, everybody. I will be trying to do more tutorials in the next few weeks, and let me know if there's any designs in particular that you're super interested in, and I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.